Hi everybody, good to see you all again. We are going to look at HGTV's Design on a Dime. For those of you who know the show, or for those of you who don't know the show rather, there's a team of hosts and designers that come to a specific client's house and they renovate a particular room for a budget that is usually under $1,000. In the couple episodes I've watched, they somehow have managed to get it right to $999. So this episode in particular that we're going to look at is season 25, episode number 13, The Contemporary Dining Room. Again, as you guys know, there is a large variety of hosts and designers that have made it onto the show over the course of its airing history. This particular episode, we have our host, Kahi Lee, and the two designers, Spencer Anderson and Abraham Hopkins. Now, like the last show that I took you guys through, I want to touch on 3 different topics. Some of them will be similar to the last one, but I want to look at them in maybe a little bit of a different light. So the first one that I want to talk about is credibility. And as you guys might remember in the last show, for Shop That Room, we talked about how the hostess, that her credentials were, she won a design competition. Design on a Dime, however, is doing it right. So instead of looking at the entire pool of designers and hosts that have been a part of this show, let's focus on the 3 who are in this episode today. Our host, Kahi Lee, studied interior design at UCLA as a graduate student, while also pursuing her interest in fashion, art, and entertainment. I would say that is a step in the correct direction so far. The 2 designers on today's show are Spencer Anderson and Abraham Hopkins. Now, Spencer Anderson originally was majoring in art and metal sculpture. Then he received his BFA from Florida State University, where he also became interested in helping his friends out with designing sets and building props, to which he became an assistant art director for some shows, eventually making it his way onto Design on a Dime. And Abraham Hopkins was a contractor for 10 years, certified as a green builder after 5. So cool! Thanks to his construction management degree at Cal Poly. And he is also the owner of a construction company known as Paradigm Building. So as you can see, these 3 people, with their varied amounts and types of experience, promote the idea of hiring a professional to help with these sorts of projects, as well as give the information on the show a little bit more intellectual depth. Topic number 2. I mentioned it more in the last episode in terms of context, but I want to talk about it more in terms of connectivity this time. As you guys know, or may have inferred, one of the things that kind of bothers me about these shows is that there's never really an inference to the rest of the house. In Design on a Dime, it's a lot more obvious that the show cares about the context of the room that is being designed and the way that it connects. Some of the shots that take you through the house take you through a couple of the different rooms. Hands down, my favorite part of the episode is when the owners mention that they want the design to connect back to the rest of the house, or more specifically to use it as inspiration to help decorate the rest of their house. Sadly though, by the end of the episode, this whole theme seems to have been a little bit lost. The focus is still, of course, on the main room, but there really wasn't too much mentioning of the supposed connection back to the family room and the rest of the house. I was definitely glad to see that it was addressed though. Number 3. We'll call this last segment Reasoning, aka the tips given by the hosts and designers. So I know I really appreciate it when these shows give explanations for the things that they do and how they do them, especially when it's something that I'm not terribly knowledgeable in. But 9 times out of 10, I feel like I'm getting talked down to. So there were 2 moments in the show that sort of inspired this to be one of the topics to talk about. The first of which is when Abraham was buying the molding for the walls, and the second when Spencer was putting together the table. Sorry, I meant bench. I don't know why I said table. So while Spencer is out shopping, he explains the difference in purchasing MDF molding versus wood molding, that purchasing MDF, not only will it last a little bit longer, but it'll also be a lot less expensive. What I think might have added to that segment a little bit was explaining what MDF is as a material to help make it something that's a little bit more familiar. But then, when Spencer was putting the table together, and maybe this is just because I don't know that much about putting furniture together, he showed us what a biscuit is. So, like I said, maybe it's that, I just don't really know that much about furniture building, but I was really glad to have learned something new like that. So I know personally I prefer Design on a Dime overall as a show, perhaps because the designer's professions and expertise shines through a little bit better, as we've discovered today. I also like how the show is working with a relatively realistic budget for the average audience, which is hopefully where I'll be once I've graduated and have a job with a steady income, aka rich and famous. But seriously. Okay, so thank you for stopping by again. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I will definitely see you guys all next week.